behind.
The sheriff's horse fell to the ground right in the middle of Main Street. His front legs gave way, and he crashed down hard on the dusty road. Everyone in the town watched. Nobody moved, nobody helped. The horse was breathing heavy, his body shaking with pain. Blood dripped from his sides where the sheriff had beaten him with his heavy belt just moments before. The horse's eyes were wide and scared, full of suffering that nobody cared about. The sheriff, a big man named Dalton Wade, stood above the fallen animal with his hands on his hips. He was angry, very angry. His face was red like fire, and his eyes were mean and cold. He had just come back from chasing 3 outlaws across the desert for 2 days straight. He had not slept. He had not eaten. His horse had carried him hard across the hot land, running fast without stopping. The poor animal was tired, thirsty, and weak. But the sheriff did not care about the horse's pain. "Get up," the sheriff shouted at the horse. He kicked the animal's side with his boot. The horse tried. He really tried. His legs pushed against the ground, but they would not hold him. He was too weak. He was too tired. He needed water. He needed rest. He needed kindness. But instead, the sheriff kicked him again. The time was late afternoon. The sun was burning hot, and it was still high in the sky. The heat made everything look like it was shaking and moving. The dirt road was dry and hard like rock. Not a single cloud was in the sky. The town was called Copper Ridge, a small, dusty place where miners came to spend their money on whiskey and cards. The buildings were made of old wood that had turned gray from years of sun and wind. The paint was peeling off the walls. The windows were dirty. Even the street looked like it had not been cleaned in a very long time. The sheriff's horse was a beautiful animal once. His name was Storm, and he was dark brown with a white star on his forehead. But now he looked terrible. His ribs showed through his skin because the sheriff did not feed him well. His coat was covered in sweat and dust and dried blood. His mane was tangled and dirty. His eyes had lost their bright light. They looked sad and empty, like he had given up hope that anything good would ever happen to him again. The people of Copper Ridge stood on the wooden walkways in front of the shops. The baker's wife watched from outside her store. The blacksmith looked out from his shop. 3 men sat on a bench outside the saloon, holding their drinks, not saying anything. A young girl stood between her mother's legs, watching with wide, confused eyes. An old man spat into the dust but said nothing. Everyone could see the horse's pain. Everyone could see the cruelty. But they all stayed silent. They all looked away or looked down. Nobody wanted trouble with the sheriff. The sheriff's belt was still in his hand. It was thick and heavy, made of leather and metal. He had used it to beat the horse many times during the long ride back to town. He was ready to use it again if the horse did not obey him. Storm tried once more to stand up. He pushed with his legs. He shook with the effort. For just a moment, he got his front hooves off the ground. Everyone thought maybe he would make it. But then his legs buckled again, and he fell back down with a painful thud. The dust flew up around him. The sheriff did not feel sorry for the horse. He did not see a living thing that needed help. He only saw failure. He only saw something that was not doing what he commanded. And that made him more angry. "Useless animal," the sheriff said. His voice was hard like stone. "Good for nothing. I should have left you to die out there in the desert." He looked at the crowd of people watching him. "Anyone want to buy a dead horse?" He asked with a cruel laugh. Nobody answered. Nobody even smiled.
The sheriff raised his belt again. The horse saw it coming. Storm flinched, waiting for the pain. His whole body shook with fear. This was his life now. This was all he knew. Pain and fear and darkness. He had forgotten what it felt like to be loved. He had forgotten what kindness felt like. He had forgotten that good people existed in the world. But then something unexpected happened. A sound came from the edge of town. It was the sound of hoofbeats. Another horse was coming down the main road toward Copper Ridge. The sound grew louder. Everyone turned to look. A lone rider was approaching, riding a strong, healthy horse. The rider was a woman. She wore a brown hat and a long coat, and her face was serious and strong. She had kind eyes, but they also looked dangerous. She was a ranger, one of the few lawmen in that territory who actually cared about justice and truth. Her name was Sarah Blackwell, and she had seen many bad things in her years as a ranger. But what she saw now in Copper Ridge made her blood boil with anger. She saw a helpless animal being beaten by someone who wore a badge. She saw a whole town of people who said nothing. She saw cruelty winning because nobody was brave enough to stand against it. The ranger pulled her horse to a stop right in front of the sheriff. She dismounted slowly, never taking her eyes off Dalton Wade. Her hand rested on the gun at her side. Her jaw was tight. Every muscle in her body was ready for action. The sheriff looked at her with confusion and anger. He did not know who she was. He did not care. He was the law in this town. Nobody told him what to do. "This is sheriff's business," he said. "Ride along, woman." But Sarah Blackwell was not the type of person who rode along. She looked down at the fallen horse with deep sadness. She saw the pain. She saw the suffering. She saw an innocent creature that could not protect himself. And she knew in that moment that everything was about to change. Sarah Blackwell stepped forward slowly. Her boots made sounds in the dust. Step, step, step. Each sound was loud and clear. The whole town went quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. The only sound left was the horse's heavy, painful breathing on the ground. The sheriff's face turned angry. His neck turned red. He did not like being told what to do. He did not like it when someone challenged him. He was used to being the most powerful person in Copper Ridge. He was used to people being afraid of him. "I said ride along," the sheriff repeated. His voice was louder this time, harder, more dangerous. He gripped his belt tighter in his hand. But Sarah did not move. She did not look afraid. She looked at the horse first. She knelt down slowly beside the fallen animal. The horse's sides were going up and down with quick, scared breaths. She could see the marks on his body where the belt had hit him over and over again. She could see that his back left leg was injured badly. It was swollen and turning dark purple and black. She could see that he had not had water in a long time because his mouth was dry and his eyes looked sunken into his head. "This horse needs water," Sarah said quietly. She did not shout. She did not yell. She spoke calmly, like she was just saying something simple and true. "This horse needs a doctor. This horse needs rest." The sheriff laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. "This is not your horse," he said. "This is not your business. You are not the law here. I am the law, and I do what I want with what is mine." Sarah stood up slowly. She turned to face the sheriff directly. Her hand was still resting on her gun, but she had not drawn it. Not yet. Her eyes were strong and calm, like deep water. "My name is Sarah Blackwell," she said. "I'm a ranger. That means I protect living things that cannot protect themselves. I uphold the laws of this territory. And there are laws against animal cruelty, Sheriff Wade. Laws that apply even to men who wear badges." The sheriff's laugh stopped. His face became even more red. He dropped his belt on the ground. He put his hands on his hips again. "You are not welcome here, Ranger," he said. "This is my town, my rules. Now get out before I arrest you for interfering with a lawman." Sarah did not leave. She turned away from the sheriff and looked at the people watching from the wooden walkways. She saw the baker's wife. She saw the blacksmith. She saw the three men with their drinks. She saw the young girl still standing between her mother's legs. "Does anyone here want to help this horse?" Sarah asked. She looked at each person. She waited for someone to answer. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. "Are you all too scared?" Sarah asked. Her voice was not mean. It was sad. "Are you all too frightened of one man to do what is right?" The young girl started to step forward, but her mother held her back tightly and pulled her into the shop. The old man looked down at his feet. The three men looked at their drinks. The blacksmith went back inside his shop and closed the door. The sheriff smiled, an ugly smile. "You see," he said, "nobody helps. Nobody cares. This is how it works out here in the West. Strong people survive. Weak things die. That is the law of nature." "That is the law of cruelty," Sarah said. "Not nature. Cruelty." Behind Sarah, the horse made a sound. It was not a strong sound. It was weak and small, like a cry for help that almost nobody could hear. But Sarah heard it. She turned around and looked at Storm again. The horse's eyes were looking at her. The horse was watching her. For the first time in a very long time, the horse was looking at a human being with hope. Maybe this woman would help. Maybe this woman was different. Maybe this woman would not hurt him. Sarah knelt down again beside the horse. She reached out her hands slowly, carefully, so the horse would not be afraid. The horse flinched at first. He was used to hands meaning pain. But Sarah did not hurt him. She just gently touched his neck. She spoke to him in a soft, kind voice that the horse had never heard before. "I'm going to help you," she whispered. "I promise you. You're going to be okay. I'm going to get you away from this place. I'm going to take care of you. You just have to hold on a little bit longer." The sheriff watched this scene with anger burning in his eyes. He did not like being ignored. He did not like seeing the ranger care about the horse. He did not like that she was not afraid of him. He reached down and picked up his gun from the holster on his hip. He did not pull it out of the holster. He just let his hand rest on it, showing Sarah that he had it. "Last warning," he said. "Ride out now, or I will shoot you where you stand." Sarah stood up again. She looked at the sheriff's hand on his gun. She looked at his angry face. She looked at the fear and darkness in his eyes. And she understood something in that moment. The sheriff was not actually angry because of the horse. He was angry because he was sad. He was angry because he was scared. He was angry because something had broken inside him a long time ago, and he had never fixed it. But understanding did not change what had to happen next. "I am not leaving," Sarah said, "and you are not shooting me. Because if you do, every person in this town is going to know that you killed a ranger for protecting a horse. Word will spread. The territory marshal will come. You will hang." The sheriff's hand shook on his gun. "You are bluffing," he said, but his voice was not as sure as before. "No," Sarah said. "I'm not bluffing. I am making you a choice. Let this horse go, and I leave quietly. No trouble. But if you do not let him go, everything you have built here comes down. Your badge, your power, your town. Everything." The sheriff and the ranger stood looking at each other. The dust blew around them. The sun continued to beat down hot. The horse lay on the ground between them, waiting to see what would happen next. The whole town watched, barely breathing, waiting to see what choice the sheriff would make. The sheriff's hand stayed on his gun. His fingers were tight and shaking. His eyes were locked on Sarah's eyes. Nobody in the whole town moved. The baker's wife held her breath. The blacksmith peeked out from his shop door. The three men sat very still on the bench. The young girl watched from inside the store, her small face pressed against the glass window. Time seemed to stop. The sheriff's face showed many feelings at once: anger, fear, shame, pride, hate. For a long moment, nobody knew what he would do. He could draw his gun and shoot Sarah. He could grab the horse and ride away. He could walk back into the sheriff's office and pretend none of this was happening. He had many choices, and each choice would change everything. Then, something unexpected happened. The horse made a sound. It was not a loud sound. It was small and weak. Storm was trying to stand up again. His back legs were pushing against the ground. His front legs were shaking and struggling. He was trying to get up not to run away, but to get away from the pain of lying on the hard ground. He was trying to stand because his body could not take lying still anymore. The sheriff looked down at the horse. He watched the animal struggle. He watched the suffering. He watched the effort and the pain. For just a moment, something changed in the sheriff's face. It was like a door opened in his heart for 1 second. It was like he remembered something he had forgotten, something from a long time ago. Then the door closed again. The sheriff pulled his hand off his gun. He looked at Sarah one more time. Then he turned and walked toward his office without saying anything. He did not say yes. He did not say no. He just walked away. Sarah did not move. She was ready for anything. She was ready for him to come back with more men. She was ready for him to come back with guns. But he did not come back. He just went into his office and closed the door. Sarah waited. She counted to 100 slowly in her head. She was watching the office door. She was watching the windows. She was watching for any sign of trouble. But nothing happened. The sheriff did not come back out. "It is okay," Sarah whispered to the horse. "He is gone. He is not going to hurt you anymore." She looked at the people watching from the walkways. She looked at each one of them. "I need help," she said. "I need someone to bring water. I need someone to bring bandages. I need someone to help me get this horse to safety." For a moment, nobody moved. They were all still afraid. The fear of a sheriff was still inside them, even though he had walked away. Fear like that does not disappear quickly. But then the young girl broke free from her mother's hand. She was only 8 years old, but she ran towards Sarah without hesitation. Her mother called after her, but the girl kept running. "I will help," the girl said. Her voice was small and brave. "I will help the horse." Sarah smiled at the girl, really smiled, with warmth and kindness and pride. "What is your name?" Sarah asked. "Emma," the girl said. "My name is Emma." "Thank you, Emma," Sarah said. "You are very brave, braver than many grown-ups." The girl's mother came running after her. She was angry and scared at the same time. "Emma, get away from there," the mother said. "You cannot help. The sheriff will be angry." But Sarah looked at the mother with strong eyes. "The sheriff is not going to be angry," Sarah said. "The sheriff has made his choice. He chose to walk away, and now other people are making their choices too. You can choose to help, or you can choose to look away. But know this, if you choose to look away, you're choosing cruelty. You are choosing to let suffering continue. Is that the example you want to give to your daughter?" The mother looked at her daughter. She looked at the horse. She looked at Sarah. And she looked back at her daughter. And she took a step forward. "I will get water," the mother said quietly. "From the well." That was the beginning. The old man who had spat into the dust stood up from his bench. He walked towards Sarah and the horse. "I know about animals," he said. "I was a veterinarian before I came here. I gave that up when the sheriff took over. But I can help this horse if you want me to." "I do want you to," Sarah said. "Please help." The blacksmith came out of his shop. He was a big man with strong arms. "I can make a cart," he said. "I can pull it myself if needed. We can move the horse to a safe place." One by one, the people of Copper Ridge made new choices. Small choices, brave choices. The baker brought clean cloth for bandages. The 3 men from the saloon helped lift the horse carefully onto the cart that the blacksmith made. Emma carried water from the well in a bucket, and Sarah used a cloth to gently pour water into Storm's mouth. The horse drank slowly. His eyes became a little bit brighter. His body stopped shaking so much. An hour passed. The sun was getting lower in the sky. The heat was becoming less burning. The sky was starting to turn orange and pink and gold. Sarah looked at the old veterinarian. "What is your name?" she asked. "Thomas," he said. "Thomas Morgan." "Thomas," Sarah said, "I am taking this horse to the mountains. There's a place there where he can rest and heal. I need someone who knows about animals to come with me. Someone who can help him get better. Will you come?" Thomas looked at the town. He looked at the sheriff's office, where Wade was still inside, not coming out. He looked at the people around him. He saw the baker's wife smiling at him. He saw the blacksmith nodding at him. He saw little Emma looking at him with hope in her eyes. For the first time in many years, Thomas felt like he was part of something good, something that mattered. "Yes," he said, "I will come. This horse needs help, and I can give it to him." Sarah turned to the blacksmith. "Can the cart move to the mountains?" she asked. "Yes," the blacksmith said. "I will pull it myself if I have to. This horse is not going to suffer anymore. Not while I can help stop it." As the sun continued to sink lower, the people of Copper Ridge worked together. They gathered supplies. They prepared food for the journey. They brought blankets and water and medicine that Thomas said the horse would need. And from inside the sheriff's office, Dalton Wade watched through the window. He watched the people helping the horse. He watched Sarah directing them. He watched little Emma petting the horse gently on the neck. He watched the whole town come together for something good. And he felt very, very alone. The door to change had opened. The people of Copper Ridge were walking through it. And nothing in the town would ever be the same again. The cart was ready just as the last light was leaving the sky. The blacksmith had done good work. The cart was sturdy and strong, with wheels that turned smoothly. The horse lay on a bed of soft hay and blankets. Thomas had checked every part of his body and had wrapped the injured back leg carefully with cloth. He had given Storm water mixed with medicine to help with the pain. Sarah stood beside the cart and looked at the group of people who were going to travel with her. There was Thomas, the old veterinarian. There was the blacksmith, whose name was Marcus. There was Emma and her mother, whose name was Rose. There were also the 3 men from the saloon. They said they wanted to help because they were tired of being afraid. In total, there were 7 people who had chosen to do something good. 7 people who had decided that cruelty was not the only way. 7 people who were willing to risk something for an animal that nobody else cared about. Sarah looked back at the town. The sheriff's office was still dark. The sheriff had not come out. He had not tried to stop them. He had just watched from the window and then disappeared into the shadows. "We need to leave now," Sarah said. "It is going to be dark soon, and we need to find a safe place to stop for the night. The journey to the mountains will take 3 days if the horse stays strong." Marcus nodded. He picked up the handles of the cart. "The path goes north," he said. "There's a way through the desert that will take us toward the foothills. I know it well. I have traveled it before." "How long until we reach safer land?" Sarah asked. "Tomorrow afternoon, if we walk through the night and the horse can handle it," Marcus said. "After that, we will be in the foothills where the sheriff's power does not reach." Sarah turned to Thomas. "Can he travel?" she asked, looking at Storm. Thomas placed his hand on the horse's neck and felt his pulse. He looked at the horse's eyes. He checked the bandage on the injured leg. "He can travel," Thomas said, "but slowly, and he will need rest. He will need water every hour, and he will need kindness. Kindness is medicine too, maybe the strongest medicine." Little Emma came over and stood next to the horse. She reached out and touched his face gently. "Do not worry," she whispered to Storm. "We are going to help you. You're going to get better. I promise." The horse turned his head slightly and looked at the girl. For the first time since Sarah had met him, the horse's eyes looked a little bit alive, a little bit hopeful. "Let us go," Sarah said. They left Copper Ridge as the darkness was falling. The stars were beginning to come out one by one in the sky. The moon was rising in the east, big and bright and white. The night was cool, which was good for traveling. The heat of the day was finally gone. Marcus pulled the cart. The 3 men from the saloon walked beside him, helping when the ground was rough. Thomas walked next to the cart, keeping watch on the horse. Sarah rode her horse ahead of the group, watching the road and looking for any danger. Rose and Emma walked together, Emma's small hand holding her mother's hand tightly. They walked through the night without stopping. The desert was quiet and peaceful. No sounds except the wheels of the cart rolling over the rocky ground and the quiet steps of people moving forward. At midnight, they stopped for an hour to rest. Thomas gave the horse more water. He checked the bandages. He fed Storm some soft food that was easy to chew and easy to digest. Sarah stood watch while the others sat and rested their tired legs. "Why are you doing this?" Rose asked Sarah. "Why do you care so much about a horse you have never seen before?" Sarah looked out at the dark desert. She was quiet for a long time before she answered. "Because I have seen what happens when people stop caring," she said. "I have seen whole towns and whole communities destroyed because good people said nothing. I have seen cruelty grow bigger and bigger because nobody was brave enough to stand against it. And I promised myself a long time ago that I would never be one of those people. I would never look away. I would never say nothing. But what if the sheriff comes after us?" Rose asked. Her voice was worried. "What if he brings men with guns?" "Then we will face him," Sarah said simply. "But I do not think he will come. The sheriff is a broken man. Something broke inside him a long time ago. And tonight, when he saw all of you choosing to do something good, I think it reminded him that there was once goodness in him too. That moment broke something else inside him, his certainty that he was right. His certainty that cruelty was the only way. I do not think he will come after us." They walked through the rest of the night. The sky slowly changed from black to dark blue to purple to orange. The sun was coming again. The desert was waking up. Birds began to sing. The air became warmer. By the time the sun was fully up, they had traveled very far from Copper Ridge. The town was out of sight. The desert was empty all around them except for rock and sand and small bushes that could live in such a dry place. The horse was still alive, still moving, still fighting to survive. At noon, they reached the foothills. The land began to change. There were small trees. There was grass growing. They could see water flowing in a small stream. This was better land, healthier land, safer land. They stopped to rest beside the stream. Thomas took the bandage off the horse's leg and cleaned the wound carefully. The swelling was going down a little bit. The horse was healing. Emma lay down in the grass next to the horse and fell asleep with her hand on his neck. "The horse is going to make it," Thomas said to Sarah. "He is weak, but he is strong in his heart. He wants to live, and that makes all the difference." Sarah looked at the group of people who had helped. She looked at the horse that had survived. She looked at the stream, flowing clean and clear. She looked at the green grass and the trees and the sky that was so blue it almost hurt to look at it. "We're going to make it," she said. "All of us. The horse and all of you. Because you chose to be brave. You chose to do what was right. And that choice is going to change your lives." Marcus looked back toward the direction of Copper Ridge. "What do you think will happen to the sheriff?" he asked. "I do not know," Sarah said. "But I think he will have to face what he has done. And that might be the hardest punishment of all." The journey continued into the mountains. And behind them, in the town of Copper Ridge, Dalton Wade was finally beginning to understand the cost of his cruelty. 3 months passed. The mountains had become a place of healing and hope. High up in a green valley surrounded by tall pine trees and flowing streams, there stood a small cabin and a large barn. This was where Thomas had decided to stay. This was where Storm had learned to live again. The horse was no longer weak. His coat was shiny and dark brown, beautiful like it had been when he was young. His ribs no longer showed through his skin. His legs were strong again. The injured back leg had healed completely. Thomas said the horse would never have pain there again. But the most important change was in Storm's eyes. They were no longer sad and empty. They were bright and full of life, full of trust, full of hope. Sarah visited the cabin once every month. She would ride up the mountain path and spend a few days helping with the work and checking on the horse. Emma came with her mother every 6 weeks. The girl and the horse had become best friends. Emma would bring treats from the town. She would brush Storm's mane and tell him stories about what was happening in Copper Ridge. And Copper Ridge had changed. 3 weeks after Sarah and the others had left with the horse, the territory marshal arrived in the town. He came because Sarah had sent a message through riders. The marshal investigated the sheriff's treatment of the horse and the animals in the town. He found many problems, many cruelties, many animals that had been hurt and neglected. The sheriff did not fight. He did not resist. He simply turned in his badge and told the marshal everything. He told him how he had beaten the horse. He told him about the other animals he had hurt. He told him about his own pain and anger that had turned him into a cruel man. The sheriff was arrested and taken away to the territorial jail. He faced a trial. He was found guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years of hard labor in the prison. On the day he was taken away in chains, the people of Copper Ridge lined the streets to watch. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They simply watched as the man who had ruled them with fear was finally held accountable for his actions. But something surprising happened. The day before the sheriff left the town, he asked to see Sarah. The ranger came to his cell. She stood on the other side of the bars and waited for him to speak. "I am sorry," the sheriff said. His voice was broken and small. "I am sorry for what I did to the horse. I am sorry for what I did to this town. I am sorry for what I did to myself." Sarah did not say anything. She just listened. "When I saw you all helping that horse," the sheriff continued, "when I saw that girl petting him like it mattered, I realized something. I realized that somewhere along the way, I forgot how to care about anything. I forgot how to see the good in the world. I let anger and pain turn me into a monster." "You can change," Sarah said simply. "Even in prison, you can change. It is never too late to become a better person." The sheriff looked at her with tears in his eyes. "I would like a change," he said, "but I do not know if I can." "You can," Sarah said. "If you want it badly enough, you can." After the sheriff left, a new sheriff came to Copper Ridge. His name was William Holt, and he was a fair man who treated people with respect. He treated animals with respect. The town began to heal. The blacksmith, Marcus, opened an animal care center. He used his strong hands and kind heart to help animals that had been hurt or neglected. Rose, Emma's mother, became the keeper of records. She kept careful notes of which animals were healthy and which needed help. She made sure that the new sheriff knew about any person who was being cruel to animals. The old veterinarian, Thomas, was invited to come back to the town to teach others about animal care. But Thomas chose to stay in the mountains with Storm. He said the horse needed him, and he needed the horse. He said they had both been broken, and they had healed each other. On a warm day in the middle of spring, Sarah brought someone new to meet Storm. It was a young boy, maybe 10 years old, whose family had just moved to the territory. The boy was shy and quiet, and he did not talk much to people. But when he saw Storm, something changed in his face. "Can I pet him?" the boy asked quietly. "Yes," Sarah said. "Storm loves people who are kind." The boy walked slowly toward the horse. Storm turned his head and looked at the boy with gentle, knowing eyes. The boy reached out and touched Storm's neck, and something inside the boy began to heal too. Something that had been broken began to come back together. Thomas watched this moment, and he smiled. "Every broken thing can heal," he said to Sarah. "But it takes time. It takes kindness. It takes someone who cares enough to stay and help." 1 year passed, then 2 years, then 5 years. The sheriff was released from prison early for good behavior. He came back to Copper Ridge, but not as the sheriff. He came as an ordinary man seeking a second chance. He worked at Marcus's animal care center, helping to heal hurt animals. It was honest work, and it was good work. The people of the town were slow to forgive him, but slowly, over time, they did. Storm became famous in the territory. Stories were told about the weak colt that survived cruelty and became strong. People came from distant towns to see him. They brought their own hurt animals to Thomas, asking for help. Thomas taught them about kindness. He taught them about healing. Emma grew older. She became a veterinarian like Thomas. She said it was because of Storm. She said the horse had taught her that helping others was the most important work a person could do. Sarah continued her work as a ranger, but she visited the mountains every chance she got. She brought news from the territory. She brought supplies and food. She brought new people who needed healing, both animals and humans. And Storm lived a long life, a happy life, a life full of love and kindness and purpose. When Storm finally grew old and weak again, many years later, he was surrounded by the people who loved him. Thomas was there. Emma was there, now grown into a strong and kind woman. Sarah was there. Little Emma, now not so little anymore, was there with her own children, telling them the story of a horse that could not be broken. And when Storm finally closed his eyes for the last time, he did not close them in fear or pain. He closed them knowing that he had been loved, knowing that he had changed lives, knowing that his suffering had meant something, knowing that kindness had won. On Storm's grave, they placed a stone with words carved into it. "Here lies Storm, a horse that could not be broken. He taught us that the weakest among us can be the strongest. He taught us that one small act of kindness can change the world." And every person who passed that grave remembered the day a stranger came to a town and showed them that they could choose to be brave. They could choose to care. They could choose to do what was right, no matter the cost. The horse that nobody wanted had become a teacher, and his lessons would be remembered for generations to come. Because sometimes the smallest creature carries the greatest message. That love is stronger than cruelty. That kindness can heal anything. That it is never too late to choose the right path. And that one person standing alone against wrong can change everything. The end.